What about what's in it though? Because I mean, it used to be a lot less, I think, is what Courtney's saying, years ago, and now there's so many things seem to be added, and they tested and tried.
I mean, we are vaccinating for more diseases. And again, one of the problems is the effectiveness of vaccines. People now don't see diphtheria, they don't see tetanus, they don't see polio. If, as a doctor, you've looked after people with meningitis and you've seen the effects of meningitis, you relish the time when we have a meningitis vaccine. We do now. We have Hib and also meningococcal vaccine for older kids. And that has dramatically reduced the death rate and the rate of meningitis, which used to be a horror for people. I have worked in infectious diseases. I've worked as a paediatrician. I've gone out vaccinating hard to reach groups like travellers. And I always remember when I was working in Australia, I was looking after people who developed polio during the 1940s and were in iron lungs in their 50s and 60s. That's the reality. And certainly things like the Rotary Club on the Isle of Man have raised huge amounts of money to try to eradicate polio. But we know in certain areas, particularly in Pakistan, it's still prevalent and it's still coming back. Yeah. So vaccination is incredibly important.
But what are these sort of side effects later in life that can maybe or maybe not be attributed to that vaccine?
So again, one of the arguments is that vaccinations aren't routinely followed up. They are. I mean, there's huge amounts of evidence. Sorry to bring in lots of papers, but people seem to come to your show with books at the moment. So the World Health Organization has looked at particularly HPV vaccine, which I know various people are concerned about at the moment. 270 million doses. They've been looking right the way through since it was started to be used back in 2007. Constantly reviewing the data. They see no evidence of any link with autoimmune disease, with premature ovarian insufficiency, with infertility. No evidence with other various very rare cases. But what we do find is when you have huge vaccination programs, particularly of older people, young adults, you do start seeing symptoms. Are they related to the vaccine? Are they going to happen anyway? And I suppose it's that problem about showing the difference between causation and coincidence, because we know that young people do get a range of different conditions. They happen, particularly with HPV. One of the sad things is that cervical cancer is still one of the most common cancers in women under the age of 30. I mean, the statistics that we've got at the moment in the UK as a whole, over 3,000 new cases each year, 800 deaths, 63% survival rate, but 99.8% of it is preventable, either through cervical screening or now HPV vaccination. So we really need to get that message out that HPV vaccination is worthwhile, but also you've got to carry on going for screening, cervical smears.
What about the allegation, though, that the drugs companies, it's a massive amount of investment there and potentially money making, and they want to keep things as they are, and they don't really want the truth coming out if there was any other truth. True,
and then, which is a very valid complaint. I think the drug companies have got a big lobbying power. And that's about money, but it's also about the efficacy of their medications. What we have right across the world is people like the World Health Organization, we have the British government, we have our own public health service monitoring vaccines, monitoring vaccine safety. And in the same way as you can say that Big Pharma conspires against us, there have been real concerns recently about people trying to peddle an anti-vaccine agenda. Particularly in the United States, where in some states it's compulsory, you've had huge amounts of money going in advertising, particularly on Facebook, particularly on Twitter. You've got some very powerful people behind that movement who have used social media to amplify those concerns, to create an echo chamber of fear, which has then led on to problems. So it's really been quite interesting that in the last couple of weeks, people like Twitter have stopped having these on.
Well, that's Mr. Heading's saying he can't get his words out there now, or people with this opinion are now being stifled.
There are a huge range of opinion on the internet. One of the big problems, particularly on YouTube, is and also on Amazon, is if you go on there and you put anything about vaccine, all you get is anti-vax. All you get is anti-vaccine messages. And we need to try to clear that up. What I would say to anyone who's worried about vaccinations, actually the gov.im website is fantastic. I went on it yesterday. So if you put gov.im/HPV, you actually get all the information you need. You then get links.
Is it balanced and fair?
Well, yes, I think it is actually. It goes through the consent form. It goes through the public information forms. It then puts you. It's got a link in terms of key vaccine facts to the Oxford vaccination group, which is part of the University of Oxford, which goes through in detail about all the risks, all the perhaps side effects, including the serious ones like anaphylaxis, allergic reactions. It's then got links with lots of other different studies. So there is a lot of information there. And also on the gov.im website, there's also a telephone number to call if you're worried. So what I'd say to people, yes, that I can completely understand that when you've got your child and you're giving consent for somebody to put a needle into them, you want to make sure that's safe. You want to make sure that you're doing the best for your child. If you have any doubts, have a chat with your practice nurse, have a chat with your GP, or have a chat with the Department of Health. The information is there, it's not being covered up.
Fine, Mr. Heading wants a debate. Are you going to give him a debate ever?
Well, what he said on your programme was he wanted a scientific debate with scientific experts. I'm not a scientific expert, neither is he.
Well, that's the whole other thing. I mean, the flag that was coming back was like, what's he got to do? I mean, and I'm sure he wants to come back on this, but we're trying to make this as balanced.
Yeah, and so I'm, he can give me 3,000 different studies that show his point of view. Yeah. I could do, if I had the time, I could probably do the same. What we need to do is get that clear, impartial advice to people so that they can make their decision. We are not like America, we're not like parts of Europe where vaccination is compulsory to get your kids to school. However, the message, I think, overall from the medical profession and from society in general is vaccination works. We can see what happens if you don't vaccinate, with massive increases in things like measles, and that was to do with the Wakefield scandal over a decade ago. It's still having problems. And so if we want to improve overall health of our population, vaccination has a key role to play.